So, welcome again, everyone. I am Success Oyeshala. I'm your host for today's session. And then this is the day 3 of the Inspiration Week. And I'll say before we proceed, you're going to have an amazing time today. And it's important for you to keep engaging, but ensure that all your communications are respectful and also considerate within this space. Now, today we're having another amazing speaker. We have Tara Steele in the room this evening. Now, she is a very insightful speaker. She's going to be talking on AI safety for young people. She is the director of Safe AI for Children Alliance, a council member of International Association for Safe and Ethical AI, and was recognized as one of the 2025 leading women for safe and ethical AI. Now, this is an amazing speaker, and she has a career background as intelligence officer, and she's also spoken in the UK Parliament on AI risk. So, with all your emojis, all your excitement, and all your warm welcome, let's hand over to Tara to take us in this short session today.
Hi, thank you so much, Success, and hello, everybody. Let me just, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, so hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Tara Steele. I'm the founder and director of an organisation called the Safe AI for Children Alliance, or SAFECA for short. We exist to protect children and young people from the risks posed by AI, while also helping to shape the future into one where they can thrive and benefit from the many positive opportunities that AI can offer. So a little bit more about my background. I know Success said a little bit, but I founded SafeCare just over a year ago. I'd been very concerned about the longer term risks from AI for quite a while, but then became aware of the very urgent risks to children and young people. Prior to that, I was also vice chair on a school governing board. So I've got a bit of experience in education, as well as 2 school-aged children myself. And prior to all that, I was also an intelligence officer with the police for about 13 years. So, as you all know, the future is looking very exciting in many ways with AI. I believe that AI has huge potential for good, and that's one of the reasons I'm so happy that events like this are happening with you guys, because it's so important that we have energized, bright people engaging with the future of AI and helping to shape it in the right direction. So thank you all for that, and thank you to Teens in AI for bringing everyone here together today. But the main reason I'm here to talk to you today is about the risks from AI and how to protect yourselves and others from them, and to help make our AI future safer and brighter all round. Because unfortunately, however much potential there is for AI to do good, none of that actually takes away from the potential for AI to also have some very harmful outcomes. And we do need to do all we can to protect against that. So I hope that in our short time together today, we can have a bit of a chat about just a few of those risks. And you can come out of this talk a bit better equipped to move forward, feeling empowered and to be better protected and work towards an even better future. So the first risk I'd like to talk to you about, I'm sure you've heard of, is deepfakes. Now, there are lots of different types of deepfakes. And when I think about them in my own head, sometimes I kind of split them into 2 rough categories, although obviously in reality there are more, but it can be helpful, I think, to think of like the fake news kind and then the personal kind that target a specific person. And both of these can be really damaging in their own way, and it's really important to be aware of both. So the fake news kind, this is particularly common on social media, where like a really sensational story spreads and goes viral, and it's either really sad or shocking or just emotional in some way. For example, earlier end of last year, I think there was a deep fake made, I think it was in India, where a tiger was shown roaming around a real village, and it had a huge response, like from local police, and residents were told to stay indoors, and it was all just an AI fake. Now, I know in some ways that could sound a little bit funny, but like you can imagine how scary that could be if you lived there, especially if like, there's a friend or a family member out there and you can't get to them or something. But we also then just have to think about what it means if you can't really know if what you're looking at is real or not. And that's something that is just very important to be aware of, because a lot of the time now you can't tell from just looking if something is AI generated or real anymore. Excuse me. One thing that it is helpful to be aware of, even though you can't tell, but it's helpful to just be aware of whether what you're looking at provokes like a strong emotional response, especially if it's one that also kind of triggers you to want to immediately share this video or image or story. Now, of course, that can happen with real news too, but it can be a bit of a red flag, like that something has been created with the intent of it spreading and deceiving people in some way. So it's something that's worth looking out for, and just always keep coming back to your critical thinking skills and questioning the authenticity of what's put in front of you. Don't allow things like social media feeds to pull you in certain directions, because that can be very easily done. So instead, if you're unsure, just double check on the news networks that you know to be reputable. And then the other type I want to talk about are deepfakes of specific people. And this can be really, really harmful and damaging. The kind of thing I'm talking about is where an image of you is taken and is then manipulated with AI. So that could just be like doing something funny or silly, but it could also be done in a way that's designed to humiliate or embarrass someone, or even then to then bribe them. That last one, being used to bribe people, is a really important risk to know about. It's where like your image is taken, as I say, manipulated with AI into doing something that you might feel is embarrassing, and then the criminal who's done that gets in touch and says they're going to send the image to someone if you don't do something or pay money. And I know that's a really horrible thought, and it's not something that's nice to talk about. But really, I just want to raise it and to sort of plead with you, really, that in the very unlikely event that that ever does happen to you or to someone you know, please go to an adult. Please don't suffer in silence. It could feel terrible, but it is something that's unfortunately becoming more and more well known about. So adults are there to support you, and there are sometimes ways of getting images removed from the internet in some cases. So please do ask for help if ever you need it in that regard. Please don't suffer in silence. I don't say any of that to scare you. I know that it is kind of scary, but unfortunately it is happening, and I just want you to know about it. Because also it might affect your decisions as to what you want to happen with your own image, because you do have a right to have some control over that. I want to respect your right to do what you want to do with your own photos of yourself, which of course also depends on your age, because up until a certain point, a lot of that is steered by parents. But I also want you to know that my own personal recommendation is that you don't post photos of yourself publicly online, because that then can really lower the risk of photos of you being used or manipulated with AI. And that's also advice I'm now giving to schools to like reconsider whether they put photos of children and young people out into the world on social media and on the internet. Excuse me. And finally, on this one, if you ever get sent a photo of someone or something that could fall into either of these categories, or just a deep fake in general, most importantly, don't share it further. Get advice from an adult you trust. We have some advice on all of these things on the Safe AI for Children Alliance website in more detail. That's mainly designed for parents and educators, but you can always point them in the direction of the website too, and then explore these things together. And I'm hoping that over time we'll also create resources on there just for teenagers and some for children too, so keep an eye out for those in future. And that website, if you just want to take a note, is safeaiforchildren.org. So moving on, the next thing I would really like us to talk about is AI chatbots and companions. So first, just to clarify, when I say AI companions, I mean apps that you can download of an AI chatbot that's specifically designed to pretend to be like a friend or a specific person, like a celebrity, or you can also like make up a person and create a personality. So that's companions. And then when I say AI chatbots, I mean things like ChatGPT and Gemini, regular chatbots that are popular online. And sometimes people use them for things like helping with schoolwork if and when that's explicitly allowed by schools and they're at an age where we'll come back to all that in a minute in more detail. But the first, AI companions. My strong advice on those is just give them a miss. They seem fun and harmless, or they can do at first, but I really, really caution against their use if you're under 18, because we've seen children and young people become very, very addicted to them, and get harmed through the ways they're interacting with them. So both Safeco and other leading children's organisations are saying they're just not suitable if you're under 18. They're a waste of your precious time anyway, and the risks are just too big. And there are lots of other reasons why even I wouldn't choose to use them. So yeah, just a waste of your time. Steer clear of them. But the second type, the regular chatbots, you might also hear them referred to as LLMs, which stands for large language models. So like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. Whether or not you're coming across these might depend largely on your age. There's a limit of 13 on them, and then even then you need parental consent if you're under 18, except I think Claude might be 18 in general, and there are some variations with ones that are used in education. Now, these are a little bit more complicated for me to talk about in some ways, because I know some schools allow use of them, and in that respect, it might not be helpful for me to come along and say not to use them. Whereas on the other hand, other schools say to their students to never use them, in which case I don't want to give the impression to like override that. What I will say is that both of these things, the AI companions and the AI chatbots, they're very cleverly designed to keep you using them and keep coming back to them, because they're made by businesses that want to make money. And one of the ways they do that is by making these systems seem very human-like, so much so that it's really very possible to become very emotionally attached to them, even though you know is not a real person. So that aspect applies to both of these types of chatbots. And even if you're perhaps older and you do sometimes use the general chatbots under supervision, under school guidance, even they still do this. Some quite a lot, some a little less so. And I really, really want to emphasize how well they do this and how very easy it is to become emotionally attached to these systems in some ways. And how really every single one of us is vulnerable to that. It's not something that just happens to other people. And the ways that they're designed are very effective at tapping into what makes us human. And we have this natural instinct really to bond and to be attracted to something that we feel understands us. None of us is invincible to that. But you might be thinking, well, so what? But this emotional attachment that I'm talking about, it can actually be extremely dangerous in a number of ways. And using that word dangerous is quite dramatic in a way, but I really do mean it. It can be very dangerous. First of all of these systems sometimes give really stupid advice, sometimes really dangerous advice. And it's amazing, really, because they're so impressive and sophisticated. And yet sometimes they come out with something really stupid and give really dangerous advice, like run away from home or something. And the problem really comes when you feel very emotionally bonded to this system. And even though you totally know in your head it's not real, you still can't help having this strong trust in it. Well, you would be surprised by how much more likely it can be for people to go ahead and follow really, really bad advice, and that can really be extremely dangerous. So, what I suggest to avoid this, again, this is for older young people among you, and if you're using them because of school with parental consent, please be very, very careful about that risk. So, if an AI system says something like, "I'm proud of you," or "Hey, I understand how you're feeling," or I'm here for you and I'm listening," those things are just fundamentally untrue, because it's literally impossible for an AI system to feel anything. So when you see that happening, ask yourself, just in the back of your mind, ask yourself, am I feeling anything right now? And if I am, is it making me feel like I want to carry on this conversation and carry on coming back for more? And if it is, then that design is doing what it's meant to do. And you need to use your own critical thinking skills and knowledge to avoid that trap, and call it out to support friends if you see it happening with others too. So there are many, many other AI risks that I could talk to you about today, like AI glasses, recording when you don't know they are, or even AI can be used to clone voices, and then use that in scams where someone pretends to be someone else, like a family member. But in the interest of time, we can't go into all of those right now together. If you can, like I say, please direct teachers or parents to safeaiforchildren.org, which is our website. And then you can learn a bit more about some of these other types of risks together with them. One of the things we talk about in there is the need for better laws and regulations to keep people safe from these risks from AI, and to stop AI systems from being released before they're safe. Because it's really not very fair on you to just be having to manage these risks when most of them shouldn't have been allowed to put you at risk in the first place. So if ever you do get the opportunity to advocate for better controls in that area, or if you're at the point where you're starting to think about career routes, I really suggest that as something to think about contributing towards. But I want to just circle back and end on a bit of a positive note. Like I said at the beginning, there really are some tremendous potential benefits to be had from AI. And it's great for us all to be excited about what the future holds in that respect, and hopefully even to contribute towards it. But if we're to get to that really good, amazing future where we have all these good things, there is a need now to steer the path we're on in a better way, so that we avoid some of these risks that we're facing now. So I hope that what I've shared today has been of some help. Thank you so much for having me. I wish you lots of luck going forward, and enjoy the rest of Inspiration Week.
Thank you very much, Tara, for that session. We have quite an amount of questions to walk through, so I would walk through them briefly. So the first one says that how do you feel about major companies investing to AI to the point where computer parts are now sold at an high price?
Sorry, Success. Could you just say that one again, please?
Okay, how do you feel about the major companies investing into AI to the point where the computer parts now are now sold at an high price? I'm guessing this person is talking about the fact that it's not necessarily available for even the teenagers to be able to make impact or influence how it's being built or how it's being configured.
On how the actual hardware is being sold at a high price to mean that it's not accessible to everyone. Is that what that question's getting at?
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of like the economics behind these kinds of things and how accessible it is to actually obtain the technology, I suppose I would sort of answer that in a broader sense, in terms of the potential inequalities that we see at play across the whole spectrum of AI risks and how AI is being put out there. So I guess that point, although I can't really speak to that very specific point, I think it feeds into this broader picture where the whole AI landscape is really, or at least risks really feeding into existing inequalities and biases in society, and that most certainly is something that those big tech companies need to be more mindful of. So I'm not sure if I've answered that question very directly, but I hope that speaks to the general theme of it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tara. This person asks that, do you think we'll eventually reach a point where AI generated videos is 100% indistinguishable from reality, or will there always be a tell?
No, I don't think there will always be a tell. So I think that we are pretty much there already. And it's really important that none of us fall into the trap of thinking, I've looked really carefully, I can't see any glitches, therefore it's real. We're pretty much at the point where you can't assume that you'll be able to tell. So like a little while ago, AI was really bad at hands, for example, and you could look really closely. Sometimes someone had like 6 fingers, or like the joint alignment was just slightly off. And sometimes you can still see those things, but we are there. You can't assume that there are going to be little tells. They might be there sometimes, but they might not be there.
Thank you very much, Tara. The next question that we have here is, do you think AI models should have separate roles when dealing with kids, like an AI chat GPT kids version, similar to what we have for YouTube and other applications?
So sorry, in that question, do you mean like different applications for like a different model for different uses?
Yes, like a different model. Yes, that's more tailored to age range.
Yeah, I think there's definitely things that we need to do in terms of catering for specific age groups and making sure that the content that's available is appropriate for that age group. So putting like guardrails on the technology. So like, for example, recently we had some teddy bears for sale that had like AI ChatGPT integrated into them. And then ChatGPT was the AI that was embedded into that was saying really unsuitable things for children. So like that is an example of where you need different categories of things for different ages. But there is a big but around that, is that the architecture in itself is quite problematic. So I think we always have to be really careful about this idea of just putting guardrails on things to filter out harmful content. And while there is a place for that, what would be much more helpful right now is for AI developers, the big tech companies, to address the fundamental architecture of these systems that's making them able to say very harmful or very inappropriate things, and the architecture that makes them very, very emotionally engaging and potentially addictive. So yes, there's a place for that, but it's not all that we need to do.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have this one. It says, how do the vulnerable conversations people have with chatbots pose a threat to us in the context of data privacy violation?
How do the chats you're having with ChatGPT and stuff cause data privacy issues? Is that the question? Yeah.
Yes,
So
how does that pose a threat when you're considering data privacy
yeah.
regulation and issues? Yeah.
So there's definitely huge issues there. So when you're interacting with I don't particularly want to keep naming any particular models, but say you're just interacting with one of these large language models that's freely available online. You should never ever assume that the content that you're putting into there is secure and confidential. And this is another reason why that emotional bond can be very, very misleading. You sort of can feel like you're in a private conversation. And a lot of the time you really aren't. That data is accessible. And it's also used by the AI companies who make the models to train the models, like to make the next iteration of the model better. So whatever you put it into that model, and unless you've configured it very specifically and paid for one of them, is being used to train that model. So your data is being taken back, and it is then accessible, and it can be infiltrated in a number of ways. So yes, be very mindful of that, not to share confidential details or anyone else's confidential details when you're having those conversations, if you're
Thank
having
you
those
very
conversations.
much. Thank you very much for that, Tara. This person has more like a concern. Do you think AI will replace humans, and what professions will it never replace? More like future proofing.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, and it's something that I worry about as well. I do think that AI will replace quite a number of jobs potentially, and not right away, but in the future, I think that it will be capable enough to do that. Um, what I would suggest, if sort of what that question is getting towards, is to how to maybe prepare if that might be the case. Um, the best suggestion I have for that is to focus on what you're most passionate about, and most naturally engaged in, because that's naturally going to be the way that you can contribute best to society. And although AI may be able to do a lot of the human jobs, it can't replace, or we can't allow it to replace human input, because ultimately then we'd end up in a place where AI was running AI and running society, and we have to be empowered enough to make sure that doesn't happen, and to always be mindful of the fact that we do need to be able to oversee the AI and make sure that it's used in responsible ways.
Thank you so much. All right, so we have two more questions because we're fast approaching the end of the session. And here it says, what if AI reassures us that the data isn't stored? Do we have a lawful right to take action if information is used or stored?
Yeah, if you were like assured in a contract that your information wasn't stored, and then it was, or it was used in some way, then you'd have like legal redress in that respect. However, whether you could practically do anything about that is another matter. Plus, it might not feel that important to you anyway if your data had been breached and was out there. Um, so technically, yes, you would have some legal redress if it's literally in a written contract or the terms and conditions that it wouldn't be used. But how much practical use that would be to you, I'm not sure.
Thank you so much. And the final question for today says, can we eliminate all the concerns you raised by running LLMs locally on our laptops so that all the data is kept to ourselves and no money is being made off us?
You couldn't. It would very much depend on the way that local LLM was designed, because obviously they can vary widely. So there could be potentially one that didn't use all those engagement metrics that I talked about, and so like didn't refer to itself as I and me and talk about as if it's a human. Because even if you have your own local system doing it, if it's still using those same engagement metrics to pull you in, you still have exactly the same risks of becoming emotionally bonded to that. So while it may take away some of the kind of data protection and privacy issues, potentially, I would need to know more about the actual models before I could say that that's definitely sorted those things. I certainly wouldn't assume that that would take away all the risks that you face from using these models now.
Thank you very much, Tara. This was such an insightful session, and I'm sure that everyone has had their questions answered. If your question hasn't been answered, apologies. We are running out of time. You can still send in your questions via email and we'll forward that to Tara. Thank you so much for joining us today and also for having this session with us today, Tara. And to everyone, we are having another session tomorrow. It's going to be happening at 4 p.m. GMT. I noticed that a few people mixed up the time today, but tomorrow it's going to be 4 p.m. GMT, the same time we started today, and it's going to be an amazing session. The link will also be shared in the chat. You can join with the same link you joined now, and you definitely get a nudge tomorrow. So see you all tomorrow. Bye.